Outer Orange.
Hot summer, a hot, hot summer, hot summer, hot, hot, yeah. It's really hot, okay? Okay? Welcome back, y'all. This is a Zorga deck profile. Here is the one that I was originally going to post right here. And yeah, I will either go back to this one or maybe I'll stick to the current one I just created, because the one we're gonna be talking about is post to Festival Collection, but to be honest, it's really not that different in terms of the cards we're putting in. So yeah, that's why I'm like, I'll try this out. If I don't like it, I'll just go back to the old list. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna go discuss Zorga deck profile, basically post Festival Collection, and just, yeah, we're just gonna do that. So yeah, Privyet, see ya, welcome back. Outer Orange here. This is Zorga. This is blue Zorga. You can build this in red form. I think it works actually pretty well, and it's up to you kind of how you want to build it. I prefer blue, but red also works extremely well. So we're going to talk about the ride land, then we're going to talk about the orders, then we're going to go into the units, and then we're probably going to go into the triggers and call it there. Get started. The sleeves that I'm currently using. So this is blackout outer sleeves for the ride deck. Inner, I'm using Mana Moon sleeves. I don't like these sleeves that much. I'm kind of iffy about them, so probably going to change that to something else. No offense to Mana Moon, but I just it's a little too much border for me. I bought these and I've been trying them out, trying to make them work, but the more I keep trying to make them work, the less I like them. But I just keep using them because it's one of those things where it's like, well, you already spent money on it, so you know you kind of don't want to waste the money you spent on it. So I'm just kind of slowly going through them. A lot of people ask me about them. They want my sleeves, so I'm just like, maybe I should just start like tossing them here and there, like doing a little, you know, Mana Moon charity or something, and eventually I'll just go through all 7 boxes of sleeves that I bought. Yeah, I did that. And then for the actual sleeves, I'm using these Dragon Shield sleeves. These are the artwork sleeves that they have. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you guys don't know, I'm not a big dragon person, but I've absolutely been adoring the Dragon Shield art sleeves recently. And the part of it is because of this white border that they do. I'm so in love with the white border on Vanguard cards because full arts just looks so good in these. And I just can't begin to explain how much I love the white border. I've recently been slowly just converting all the decks that I mainly play with into these white borders because gosh, they look so good. I was so tired of Bushiroad's like silver border. It kind of looks weird sometimes, but yeah, these are great. They do have a dragon here, but it's fine. These have a little ombre finish to them, so they go from like a lighter color to a darker color here from the side, so when you're shuffling you can actually see the color change, which I think is freaking amazing. So yeah, these are turning into some of my favorite sleeves. A lot of my Grand Blue decks are in these right now, and yeah, just absolutely love these. Line here, so you want to start with the zero. The zero could be anything you want it to be, so you can have fun. You can run any starter, any Stochastic starter, it doesn't actually matter. Going in, we have Rancor Chain, one of the greatest ride line cards that's come out ever since it dropped. So literally since it's one, this card's been amazing. Basically, you can still pass with draw 2 and pitch a order. If you don't pitch an order, you have to discard 2 cards instead of 1. So basically it's just a draw 2 to -1 if you do get the order. If you don't, it's a draw 2, discard 2. Sounds kind of weird on paper, but it just gets so much, it gets so strong. It's been running so many builds, like Flagberg, Magnolia have been running this. It's kind of crazy that those decks have been running it for so long, to some degree still do. So it's been a while, and this card just keeps coming through. So next we have Husk. Husk basically is the counterpart to Rancor Chain. His ability says on place you can bring a normal order, specifically a normal order, back to hand. This one can pitch any order. This one has to be a normal order, so there's something to kind of keep in mind. So you can bring a normal order back to hand, and then his second ability, actually this one's a second ability too. He gets 2k in rear, which does come up sometimes. You call him out as a revival target, so he's a 10k beater, booster, whatever you do with him. And then also this one has the same thing. If you play an order, he gets 5k, so he's a 15k beater. And yeah, that's that. And last but not least, we have Zorga himself. So he lets you perform Alchemy Magic, which is basically taking an order from hand and an order from drop, combining them and being able to play them as one order. And then his second ability says you can counterblast and revive a card. Some people value the red one, which basically lets you soul blast, discard a card, bring an order from drop back to hand, which is really cool because you can cycle your orders the way you want to cycle them. You can do them in the pattern you want to do. It's a little bit more flexible. This one's a little bit more control flexible, meaning you can kind of set up your board. You're never really afraid of like what's going on because it's constantly a controlled environment, whereas Alchemy Magic is more controlled in the red one. The board state and sort of what's going on in the game is more controlled in this one. It's always been like that. That's how red and blue always operated, and as we get more Zorgas, this keeps happening. So even the Zorga mask is like different from how red and blue work as their own deck. And yeah, let's go into the orders. My orders are a little different from other people, so I'm going to showcase them first, and then as we go through them, as we go through the deck, it might make more sense. So starting off, we got the 2 mask. I did have this at 3, but if you saw the deck log photo in the beginning, and then I changed it to, obviously for obvious reasons, we were playing some other stuff, but I have 2 masks now. Two Mask is pretty good. Mask is, you know, your kind of your win con setup, so you definitely want to find this pretty soon, and we definitely have ways to find it, which is the good part. The card's pretty good, and then it kind of gets like less good as, you know, as the game goes, so it's definitely like an early game card we want to set up with it for the Mask. One thing that's really cool about it is that it's free as hell, so it has the ability where you, or its skill is literally just top 5, grab a Mask or a Dragon Tree card and put it in your hand, shuffle your deck, so it's really good. And the second skill, you shove it into Soul, reveal a dragon, you reveal a Mask card that's differently named from your Vanguard, and then you just ride it basically. So yeah, just you ride it, you active persona if your opponent's already at grade 3, so going second is actually pretty wild. And yeah, that's the effect. Next we run the Regalia's piece. This is where the deck changes a little bit from like last set to this set. So this piece lets you basically find your pieces, so you can find your Zorga Mask, you find your Roaming Prison Dragon, you're ready to go and set up. It's really nice, it's very convenient. This piece, and the fact that you can Alchemy Magic makes it that much stronger, so this is a very strong card in this deck. I think this beats the Chalice like hands down. I was never really a fan of the Chalice in this deck to begin with. I always thought Chalice was kind of funky to use, but you know, a lot of people value Chalice. I never really valued Chalice. I will say when we get the Mystique order, I think this deck gets even better. That's coming out pretty soon, so I think we're gonna get next set, so that's coming. But for the time being, we have this, and I like it. This was originally my 3rd Mask, so now it's this. Going to the 2s, we run the order. So if you run Elwith in your deck, this order is like insane because you basically always have an order in hand to activate this ability. It just says discard an order, get a plus drive to your Vanguard. On turn 2, this gets pretty wild if you open Elwith and stuff like that, so this gets pretty nuts. And it's actually pretty easy to make this condition go off now, especially with the Elwith index. So if you're playing Elwith, this card's like insane. I do want to run Malice. Malice is just really good if you need the counter charge, soul charge, and draw. Sometimes it comes up really well, sometimes you need to retire. There's really so many ways to retire your dragons that this is not a mandatory go-to card anymore. There's so many ways. If you know how to play Zorga really well, you'll notice that you really don't need to play this as often. I just play it because I really like the counter charge, soul charge, and draw card, but most of the time you'll have this CB to work with, and usually you really only have like one strong push turn. After that, you're usually dead. But I like the draw. Sometimes it comes up. I like the soul. Sometimes it comes up. Like, it's not terrible. Definitely the weakest order probably in the deck, and you could change this either to a Mask or maybe one of these or something else, to be honest. Last but not least, I run 2 Resentment. I used to run more, and then I found out that this card has a misprint on it, and I was very sad about it. It makes the card slightly worse. It's still a good card by any means. This card is insane, but I found out that it's actually misprinted. But anyway, its effect says Soul Blast with a top 3 call, and you could mill anything and it calls something, but the call is actually mandatory, by the way. So it's not a may, it's a mandatory effect. You have to mill something. So if your top 3 is triggers, then guess what? You're milling a trigger. It feels bad sometimes if it's like, you know, a good trigger. You could be, at least you can mill like the crit trigger and a gas point to soul, you know, get 2k or something. But it is a big feels bad sometimes. But long story short, this is your searcher. Usually like 9.8 out of 10 times you'll usually be grabbing something good. It could be a dragon, it could be a Mask, it could be anything. It usually would order, it could be something good. So it's not the end of the world. It can't build anything, so it's pretty good. But yeah, that's the order ride line. I line up aside from the blitz order, of course. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm running 9 orders total. So there's that. Going to the 3s, we're obviously running the 4 dragons. This is Roaming Prison Dragon. This card is basically your win con. You really need to see this pretty ASAP. So I'm running at like 3 copies. I understand the deck is very full. You need space, so I understand coming back on the dragons makes sense, but you really do need 4. You need to see this card like as soon as possible. The worst feeling is when you drive check these and you're like, especially if it's later in the game where you're already breaking and you know you're gonna drive check them, and then you do drive check them and you're like, this is not shield, and it sucks. Yeah, there's several times where these feel bad, but they're really strong. They get 10k, they get crit, they get a lot of pressure. So the earlier you see these, the greater this card gets stronger the earlier you see it, and gets weaker and weaker the later you see it, basically. So it's really good. I run 3 Mask. I did run 4. I tested 3 a while back. I kind of liked it, and then I went back to 4, and now back to 3 only because of the Regalia's piece, and I run Shadow Cloak again because of that. I feel like you can get away with running this at 3 again. I could be wrong, but I'm not gonna lie, a lot of games I tested, I have a hand like something like this, like no guard, no guard, no guard, and then of course I'll have like an order somewhere. Like sometimes this will be my hand, right? And I'm just saying, like, what do I do here? Like, I can't guard. I need, you know what I mean? Yeah, you can pitch these, but there's just, you know, it's awful. Sometimes it feels really bad. So I'm not gonna lie, running 4 Zorga Mask feels like awful sometimes. So I actually bumped it back down to 3. I think 3 is fine. We've ran 3 Persona before, right? It's not that unusual if you think about it in the long scheme of things, especially since you get Tutor 1 out and then Shadow Cloak it back to hand. It's really not the end of the world, but yeah, I like 3. I'm not gonna lie, 4 has felt disgustingly bad sometimes. I get it, consistency wise it makes sense, but you can bump it back to 4 if you want. You can put, you know, take out something else if you want, but I'm gonna stick to my 3 and just cope. Grade 2s, so I run 2 Keel, Q is your attack extender. You know, if you don't have one on the board, you can counter boss call him out when your Zorga mask attacks. So basically when this attacks, you can bring him out. It's pretty useful. You bring him out, you know, you have your 4th attack. It's pretty great. Not my favorite card in the world. Actually, this card is what makes this deck so clunky sometimes. I don't know. Something about the way this 4th attack works feels really weird. It's coming from the person who really wanted a 4th attack, but I'm not gonna lie, there are times where I'm like, what if I just take this card out, just get rid of it, you know. But I keep it because the 4th attack is pretty important. I think my least favorite part about it is that this is a 5k. Makes the numbers like very small. Like under Persona, this is 25. Under the Dragon Tree, it's like 30, but it's just 30. And yeah, you can hit triggers, but if you don't hit triggers, it's just 30, and it just feels kind of bad. I wish this was the first attack and you like went into the dragon more so, but I know that's like impossible because of how the dragons work. It has to be the other way around, but I think because it's the other way around, it makes them super awkward. But yeah, again, next we have the L-lifts. I used to run this at 4 because I really thought this card was like mandatory at 4. Now with the Regilius piece, I think 3 is pretty okay. This card's insane. I don't understand why people don't run this at like max copies, to be honest, or at least 2 to 3 copies. This card is just that good. Like I said, I did have it at 4, but I had also mask at 3. Then to bump down mask, I feel like this card needs to go down 2. But basically, its ability says when placed on Rear Guard Circle, you counterblast Soul Blast, you take a Dragon Tree marker, which is one of these, and you basically just put to the board. And then the other effect says directly search for the grade 3 mask order, which is this. So it directly searches for the order and it brings it to hand. That's the key piece here. It brings it to hand. That is so good. I said, so Zorga has like a big issue with orders coming to your hand. Sometimes you just don't get them. This card just says, here you go. And that's just so good. It's so much value. You get the exact piece you need for your deck to function, on top of it being an order, which you also need for your deck to function. And you get a Dragon Tree marker, which you also need for your deck to function. So this card completes 3 different things in one card. And the soul boss is actually massive. Sometimes that soul comes up so much. CV is kind of whatever, but the soul goes up a lot. Sometimes you're like, oh man, I really need to soul blast something. Boom, call this out, do the thing, get your thing. And you can play this late game too, just to play it. You can just revive it just to get the extra tree marker and basically deck thin, which by the way, this is essentially saying, hi, I'm gonna deck thin, I'm gonna have fun, bye, I'm gonna go deck thin now. You know, it's just so free. Because this is what I wish Shadow Cloak was basically. It's what Shadow Cloak probably should have been, but it's just not. And yeah, this card is insane. Like I said, we started at 4 and I really loved it at 4. So I'm cutting it back to 3 feels like a little, I'm a little sad. I'm a little bit of a sad turtle, but it's okay, I'll get over it. Not gonna lie, I don't like Shadow Cloak, but now with the Regalius piece, it makes a little more sense to put this back. I may change this, but right now I'm putting the 2 Cloak back in. Basically, from when placed from hand, you can mill something, which by the way, it's actually another thing. This is when placed from anywhere. Anywhere. That means revival, drop, wherever. It does not specify from your hand, which is another super key piece. This one says from hand, which also sucks. But anyway, when placed from hand, you basically take an order that's not on your drop and you mill it from deck, and if you don't, then you do nothing. And the second ability says if you play an order, you can still blast, give this you 5k, and then if you alchemy magic, you can bounce something instead. So you can bounce something as well. You get the 5k and you get the bounce. So that's pretty important. So in the middle of alchemy magic, if you get, you know, one of these guys is in your drop, you know, you can pick him up. You can call him to the board and then pick him up, so which is pretty nice. You can pick up perfect guards. You can pick up a lot of stuff. It makes the deck kind of tanky. Running this makes the deck more tanky. A lot of people run this in red more because in red you always want on order in hand, order in drop. So you can, and since this gets you the drop condition, all you have to worry about is the order in hand, which usually hopefully will be fixing those problems for you. So it's a very interesting process. But in here, I run a good bit of soul generation, so the soul blast doesn't feel pretty bad. I will say the soul blast can be kind of painful in red. The soul blast in blue is definitely very whatever because you don't go through your soul that much. Crazy fan of this card. It's my Unbreaker card. This is like the, oh no, everything's going wrong, what do I do? I'll just play bull. So that's where the bull comes in case I really need an order, I really need soul blast, I really need the marker, whatever's I need. This is what does it. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like this card, but it is searchable along with this card being searchable, along with the mask being or Zorga mask being searchable off of the order effect. So I see why people run it at more copies because then it makes the mask hit more. There are some builds that run like pure mask cards and pure Dragon Tree cards just so that you can just keep cycling and keep finding stuff and deck thinning and all that stuff, which I'm all for. I'm running a different kind of build, so I don't really care too much about that, and I'll explain in a sec why. But the build's good. You know, on place counter blast, get a Dragon Tree marker, solid, and then once per turn you can, if your Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, you can counter blast Soul Blast and take a normal order from drop, put to hand, which is also really big. Keep in mind it's mandatory actually, so if you Soul Blast an order and the only order in your drop zone is the same order you Soul Blasted, that's the only order you can pick up. So be careful, don't screw yourself. If you don't have an order to drop and you're trying to get an order to hand and your only option is the order in soul, well guess what, now you don't have an order to drop either. So it's gonna kind of be a little fishy, so just be careful. Make sure you have an order to drop already because it is a mandatory effect, you have to do it, but you still want the order to hand, but then you can alchemy magic. It can be kind of awkward, but yeah, just be careful. We have the mushrooms. So I'm not gonna lie, I am always surprised to see people not running mushrooms. I think the mushrooms are so insane. Ever since these cards got revealed, like ever since this card got announced, like I was instantly throwing these into decks. Like didn't matter what decks, it could be the Zorga, it could be premium decks, it could be Flagberg, any deck that says I can play this card. I've been trying it because that's how insane this card is, and it's actually kind of crazy, like, so that someone came up with this card and didn't think about like just how flexible this card is. I like it. I like the flexibility of this card. I will say, like, some people say it's broken. I don't know about broken, but it is really good. It is a very, very strong card. Basically, you put into soul and you get 2 tokens. That's the whole freaking card. And the crazy part is you can put into soul, call 2 tokens on top of dragons, which is another way you can actually remove the dragons without having to use malice or other weird alterations of trying to get the dragons off the board. So yeah, this is yet another extension for removing your dragons, so then you can revive them back again. So there's just, like I said, so many ways to revive dragons. But the main reason I run this is that currently, at least, isn't to Gandiva. Into Gandiva, this is like nuts if they're running the regular ride line, because you just shove this into soul, call 2 tokens, and guess what? You just shut down their entire draw turn. And on top of that, it's like early rush, right? So you can just rush with these like crazy and just kind of have fun with them. This card's great. And then the soul is definitely super important, especially in Zorga right now. Zorga does go through resources pretty fast, and it's a good healthy amount of resources. It's not like draining and you're like sitting there like, oh no, I'm out of resources. Like, you'll be fine. But I will say, especially if you're running like a card like Elwith, you definitely want this, because the soul will start depleting really fast, especially since Breaker Chain himself does Soul Blast, which is your ride line, right? So you definitely don't want to be short on soul that much, especially if you happen to this is one of your only alchemy magic options, or if you're trying to cloak, or if you're trying to use this ability. You know, you got a lot of stuff that uses soul, so getting these on the board and shoving them to soul and just recycling them over and over again does make your life a lot easier. I feel if you're not playing this card, I don't know why you're not playing this card. I understand that this card is good as well, but like most people run this over the mushrooms, but I don't know. I feel like you're doing yourself a disadvantage by not running the mushrooms. They're just that insane. Anytime I open these cards, I'm just a happy child. So yeah, there's that. And then obviously we have some PGs. We got the Blitz Order, and then we got the 3 regular ones. There's nothing too crazy in there. And going into triggers, we got the Over Trigger. Woo! Since we are in post festival collection, you could make this the red OT or the blue one, to be honest. I think the red one's a little bit better since Zorga already does a lot of revivals, so you don't really have to worry about your revival side of things, but red OT can be something to play. I will say it's really hard to want to take this OT out, just because sometimes this shifts the game in other ways. Just the heal, the double draw, the tanky, the crit is just so important sometimes. I feel like anytime you hit this offensively, it's always good, even when it's bad, even when it's the only attack. Like it's just still good, because you still draw, you still heal, you still get the crit, you still get the 10k power. The later you hit this, the more insane this card gets, I will say. So that's another thing. Like if you hit it later, it's even better. This deck deckens a lot, so you will like probably hit it at some point pretty quickly. So yeah, this OT is kind of broken. It's a very strong OT, so trying to justify running this like into the over the red one or something is kind of hard sometimes. I feel like it's player preference, and I feel like maybe when I'm out of shifts, maybe there'll be a better reason to run some of the other ones. I want something to be clear. A lot of people are like, red one's better, blue one's better. To be honest, I think meta is where you really make the decision. Those OTs aren't meant to be like, there are a couple of decks or some main decks that prioritize one OT over the other. Mainly in Keter and Lyrical, I feel like this falls into a lot. Maybe even Dark States this falls into a lot, but I feel like at the end of the day, it's really just a choice of what kind of deck you're playing and the style. I mean, a lot of people ask me questions like which OT I prefer more, and it's kind of more like, well, what's going on? Like, what do I need more? Do I want to see healing more? Do I want the pressure of having something from drop being brought back? What kind of deck am I playing? What does my deck care about? I feel like those decisions are way more important than the actual over triggers themselves, strangely enough. Anyway, that's the over trigger. We got our heals. I am running the counter heal. I will say, to Gandiva matchup, having the 2/2 split is like perfect. Like just seeing this in time is just absolutely amazing. In Zorga, you can revive it, bounce it back to hand, especially in this variant. So to be honest, you can use it and then revive it and then use it again and revive it and then use it again. Like, it's not the end of the world. I will say this is usually better, but you can also pick up the PG 2/2 in a different deck, and I really like 2/2 there, because every time I face Gandiva, I'm just like, haha, 25k shield is great. I will say into other decks, mainly Ballista and Jet, this 10k feels really bad, and I am kind of debating of maybe just taking it out, because I will say into Jet and Ballista, you want the 15k shield a lot more than you want the 10k shield. The magic numbers hit very strong. You definitely want the 15ks. So that's why I'm kind of debating if maybe I want to bring this back to just pure heals, because I think those two decks are just stronger, especially if we don't have a ban list coming up. And Gandiva is good, don't get me wrong. But I can play around getting Diva for days. I can't really play around Jen and Ballista, and the only way I can really play around is hope I have enough shield sometimes in some situations, right? So long story short, this card is kind of dead in those matchups, and getting Diva, I can usually play around it regardless of what my shield value is. The shield just makes it easier to deal with the matchup, but to be honest, I'm already usually not having a bad time with that matchup to begin with, but that's just me. So, but I don't know, y'all can think on it. I'm kind of 50-50. I have the 1 in here, but I have another deck where I'm running 2, and I did have a recent rounds of games where the 2 were in the worst situations possible because I was playing against Jen and Ballista, and they felt kind of bad. So next I run the 4 crits, so just 4 soul crit. These are pretty important in this deck. I'm usually not a big fan of soul crits, but I think Sturkea really likes utilizing soul crits just because of how the decks work and how toolboxy they are. So yeah, and then we run 2 regular crits, so this is just 2 vanillas. You'll notice that yes, there's 6 crits because I run 5 fronts. Now this is something that's very different from most other decks. Most run a crit, you know, draw, whatever. I utilize fronts in this deck, and the reason being is because of the mushrooms, this, and basically the dragons, wherever the dragons are. So basically because of these 3 cards, I utilize the fronts over the crits because you already have a lot of crit pressure, especially late game. Early on, you don't really care about the crits either. You kind of actually want things to just hit for big numbers unless, you know, the opponent checks the over trigger. And since you're going twin drive anyway, you just want to be like as annoying as possible. And the bigger the numbers get, the more likelihood your opponent's not going to guard. So I value the fronts in this deck, especially since the dragons are usually already swinging lethal anyway. And if you push your opponent fast enough, they'll usually be at 3-4 damage regardless. So your dragons are already lethal. You don't really need like the extra crit. Like this would basically be the extra crit, right? You don't really need it. The other thing is this 20k shield does come up. You kind of need it. But again, like I think the fronts just carry. Like if you swing fit, you can always swing Vanguard and not have to worry about anything. And the other thing, it makes the over trigger just better because the over trigger prefers for you to swing Vanguard first with Vanguard first over rear guards. So because of that, if you swing Vanguard first, you have a higher chance of checking as your first swing. And if that happens, then everything just gets beefier and crazier and stronger. Basically, like it's almost like running like a 6th front and a 6th crit all in one go. Basically, that sounds nuts, I know, but that is what this over trigger does, right? So with that being said, I actually prefer the fronts in this variant more than I actually thought about going up more fronts. I'm choosing not to because I do value the soul. Like I did the soul crits and stuff like that, so I'm keeping it like this. But I'm not gonna lie, my brain has thought like maybe I could go 7 front. Like, you know, that's just how insane the front actually is. It feels really strong. Like I said, since the dragons already have crits on them, you don't really need the extra crits. But sometimes your opponent just says no guard to your Vanguard and you just go crit for game. But you know, the front are pretty solid too because your opponent can only take so many can only take the dragons get high. If they don't have a PG, you know, dragons get stupidly high, and with the fronts they get like insanely high. That is indeed the whole deco profile. Like I said, this deck is good. I will say it's definitely, I feel it's not as good as I think we all thought it was going to be. We saw the results, you know, us Zorga players were like, woo, results, yay! And I'm not gonna lie, after testing it for days, weeks, and basically months, I'm finding out more and more that this deck actually is just okay. It is definitely not the worst deck in the format, but it's definitely not the best deck in the format. I think it's right below some of the best decks, and I think it's more on the lower side below. There are some situations where you just kind of auto lose with this deck. And by the way, this comes from someone that absolutely loves this deck to death. This is definitely not coming from like a, oh, I'm just here to crap on Zorga. I absolutely love Zorga, and this is coming from my heart here. So there are definitely times where this deck feels very bad, especially when you have too many shieldless cards or things are just going really against you, or you don't find your dragons. There's just a lot of things that need to go right for this deck to purely perform well. Sometimes just the raw power of the deck just carries through, but there's a lot of times where it doesn't, and you just kind of sit there and go, what did I do wrong? And most of the time it's not you, it's just the deck. The deck's a little clunky. It requires a lot of pieces for things to work, and sometimes you just don't, you drive check like really bad cards that you don't want to see, and it can be a little awkward. Other than that, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm not gonna do a mulligan run this time. I just don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing it this time. It's a lot of thinking. I just don't feel like doing, and this deck has been kind of turning into my more casual deck, so I've just been kind of having more fun with it. But still, very fun deck, very awesome deck. Hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. If you have any questions, feel free to leave below. I'll have the deck log and everything below as well. Tell me if you like the Regalias piece. If not, what would you change? Do you prefer Shadow Cloak and all that kind of fun stuff? Peace out, guys. That's what I know. See you guys in a future video. Bye.